record. Okay. Oh, there's a kitty. Oh my goodness. That's the cutest thing I've ever seen. Yay. Aw. So actually these goddesses, one of the goddesses we're going to talk about is associated with something called a polecat. And I thought, oh, it's just like a cat or a kitten. It's actually like a weasel. I didn't know a polecat was a weasel or a mongoose. So the goddess, we have two goddesses. So the first goddess, she's like an appetizer. It's Selene. And then the second goddess is our main course, and that's Hecate. And Hecate is the one that's associated with polecats or weasels or mongooses, something like that. But both of these goddesses are associated with Artemis. And there's sort of a trifecta that Artemis is the crescent moon, and Selene is the full moon, and Hecate is the new moon or the dark moon. And so they're all associated with each other, and really cool. And Selene, she's actually also, her Roman name is Luna. And so that's where you'll know her from. And I think we'll do her first, because all of these goddesses, kind of interesting. They don't have, like, I bought all these Greek mythology books because I was so excited. I was like, all right, I'm going to study. And I got these cool, like, big fat books. And then all the goddesses I picked out had like nothing in them. It's so kind of interesting that they were like more popular way back when. And then they all got sort of like pushed to the edges, and we'll talk about why that is, and why that happens to women in general all over the world. In these stories, they all get sort of like, their role gets made smaller and smaller and smaller until they're just sort of like these little side notes in history. And it almost kind of broke my heart, because the goddesses are so cool. And literally, I can show you, I got this book, right? And this was supposed to be the best anthology of classic Greek mythology. And when I looked up Hecate, she had one sentence in this whole thing. And it's just so not okay, because she's really this powerful deity. And so we'll start with Selene. Looks like it would be, I'll put her name in the chat box. That's Selene, which we would pronounce Selene, but I think it's Selene or Selene, and or Latin is Luna. And we don't know a ton about her, but we know that, well, actually one thing that's kind of cool is that her name gives us the name of the element selenium. And so she is something. She's got some place in history there. But she's descended from the Titans. And so the Titans were sort of like the foundations of our world, the original beings of the world, the Titans. And the Titans, at one point, the Titans fought the Olympians, and the Olympians won. And the Titans were sort of relegated to like second degree status below the Olympians. And by Olympians, I mean like Zeus and Hera and the ones that we're more familiar with. But the Titans were actually first. And so Selene, she's descended from the Titans, and she was very, very beautiful. And her brother was Helios, the sun god. And so Helios would ride in his golden chariot and carry the sun across the sky during the day. And then when he got tired, he would go and rest, and she would get in her chariot, and she would carry the moon across the sky. And her daughter is the dew. So the moon would go with the dew, the sweet dew that would fall on the grass. And the two of them would ride through the sky at night, bringing the moon and the dew. And, so that tells you something there too, is that she thrives in darkness. And the same thing with Hecate too, and Artemis also, because they're all associated with the moon. And I was thinking about the term lunatic, right? We use that word lunatic, and how it wasn't always a derogatory term, actually. It just meant someone who sees things differently. Because in the darkness, things all look different, don't they? When you go out at night, you ever go walk in your yard at night, and it's like, wait, where am I? Or even your house, when you go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and like shadows are weird and stuff, and everything looks different. So that's really what lunacy comes from. It's that idea that we see things differently in the darkness, and maybe that's not always a bad thing. And there's one story about this goddess, and that's pretty much the only one. But I think it's a beautiful story because it's a rare story about a woman who desires a man and goes after him. Because in all these Greek stories, I have to say they're all kind of troublesome, and that a lot of them are about Zeus or some other powerful male god that takes a woman. And it happens again and again and again. But in this one, it's really beautiful because it's a rare female pursuit. And so Selene, she would ride her chariot with the moon across the sky, and she would come down and kind of like bless people. She could put them to sleep. And so the moon would descend and it would help people to sleep really softly and sweetly. And one day she descended and she saw this beautiful shepherd boy. His name was Endymion. He was so beautiful, and she would visit him every night, and she would help put him to sleep, and she would just watch him. And she realized, though, that he was immortal, of course, and she's a goddess, and she's eternal, and she couldn't bear the thought of him ever getting old and dying. And so she begged Zeus to put him into eternal sleep, eternal sleep, so that she could visit him forever, every night until the end of time. And she also made Zeus make him not age, and so he stayed forever this gorgeous young shepherd boy that she would visit every night. And they had 50 children together, which kind of confuses me. If he was asleep, I don't know how that happened. But that's the story of Selene, that she would visit him every night for eternity. And and really that's about it for her. I don't know if any of you know anything about this goddess. If you do, you can always chime in. But it seemed like, with all the research that I did, it seemed like that was about it for Selene. But then the next one, and then I'll just pause for just a moment to see if anybody out there in goddess land. No, all good. Yeah, I didn't think so, but kind of cool, right? But the next one is she's definitely a little more interesting, and this is Hecate or Hecate. Hecate, I think, is how you say it, but I think it's just a side note because I'm kind of a language nerd. Did you ever notice how we in America or Canada, if you're in Canada, I think you probably do this too, or in the UK, how we always accent the second syllable of something? And so I was listening to all these different podcasts and lectures and things, and they were calling her Hecate. And I was like, I don't think that's right. It's sort of the way that people say asana instead of asana, right? And I think so you'll just notice that, like, as you go about your day today and you hear people talk, notice that we tend to always emphasize the second syllable of things. And so in Greek, it's not like that. So she's Hecate or Hecate. See, I'm doing it. It's Hecate, not Hecate. It's Hecate. So Hecate, we don't know for sure where she came from, but we know that she's super, super ancient. She's one of the oldest of all the gods, and she actually was one of the most powerful of the goddesses way, way, way back when, like in BC ancient times. They think maybe that she came from Egypt or the Anatolian region, Turkey, and sort of evolved and sort of made her way over into the Greek pantheon, but was actually much older than that. But like all this stuff, we don't know anything 100%. We don't have all the answers to that. But it's also thought that she was originally, her and Artemis were the same. They were one, and at some point they split, and Artemis got all like the good qualities, like the hunt and yay, and young ladies and ushering women through, into their womanhood. And Hecate got all like the dark, scary qualities. And so she's the goddess of witches and witchcraft and necromancy and ghosts and ghouls and all these kind of scary things. Some people think they're scary, some of us don't. She's a triple goddess. So often you will see, one of the pictures I posted on Instagram showed her as actually three goddesses, three bodies and three heads, a triple goddess, because she rules not just our world, she rules the human realm, the realm of the gods, the heavens, and also hell or the underworld. And so she rules all three of those. So she's also super powerful. She's one of the only goddesses that's associated with all three realms. And she's shown in this triple form, and kind of interesting. And you'll see a lot of parallels between her and these Hindu goddesses, the dark Hindu goddesses that we were talking about. because um, she rules over, she's very Kali-like, and that she likes to hang out in the cremation grounds. They say she particularly loves to spend time where someone has been murdered and their blood has been spilled. And there's sort of a darkness about the space, and she likes to bless those spaces. And she's a fringe dweller, an edge dwelling, sort of like mysterious being, but she was really, really beautiful. And so the older images show this triple goddess form. And there's older, they have all these statues that they've excavated and dug up, things like that, that show this gorgeous young triple goddess. And then at some point, eventually, she turned into this like gigantic, scary old crone. Reason being, she was powerful. The patriarchy could not deal with, they did not like a powerful female goddess. And this happens again and again and again. But I'm going to go back a little bit to her history. And so she also is descended from the Titans, so she's one of these ancient gods. She helped the Olympians with the war against the giants, and so because of that, which by the way is called gigantomachia, which I don't know, the first thing I thought was it sounds like a sushi roll, and then I thought, no, it sounds like a fancy coffee drink. So in the gigantomachia, the triple caramel machia, she helped Zeus. She helps him out. So the giants, they end up, they want to fight against the Olympians. They're like, no, we should be more important. And so they gather all these mountains and they pile them all on top of each other to be even higher than Mount Olympus. And they start a big war with the Olympic gods. And so Hecate, she comes and she uses her great power to help the Olympians. And so when the war is over, she's the only of all of those titans, she's the only god or goddess that gets to keep all of her power after these wars. And so she's the only one, not only does she get to keep her power, but Zeus actually was so impressed by her power. This, I love this, that Zeus, it says that Zeus, so impressed was he by her power that he, can you guess that he, what did Zeus usually like to do? What did we talked about Zeus last time, right? He was an old horny toad, right? So when I heard this, I thought, my first thought was, well, he took her, right? No, actually, she was the only one that he didn't. He was so, right? And so that says like a woman who stands in her power. She was so powerful. He was so impressed that he dared not lay a finger on her. And that says a lot because Zeus laid a finger on everybody. He dared not lay a finger on her, and he shared his power with her, which is also amazing. So she's the only other god or goddess. It's only Zeus and Hecate that have the power to manipulate the world. She can manipulate the world just as much as Zeus can. And she used her power, though, where Zeus mostly used his power to turn into an animal and have sex with women who didn't want to have sex with him. Hecate used her power to help the humans. And so that, I mean, we're all women here, and I try so hard not to be like a man hater, you know, because there's so many beautiful, lovely ones. But in these stories, it's hard to hear these stories, isn't it? And not be like, what the fuck, you know? So just interesting. But I do think that as the world is waking up here, that a lot of men are waking up too. So I'll say that. I'm not saying like across the board, all men are awful, but that's what happened. So she got to keep her power, but as male-dominated myths started to become more pervasive, little by little, her power diminished. Same thing with Kali, right? Remember the story? I don't know. I think we went over the story about the dance contest, right? And if you weren't there, I'll just sum it up really super briefly. So basically, Kali was this goddess of South India, a goddess of the forest, really wild, primal, powerful mother goddess. And when the men came, when the invaders came from the north down through the Mongolian plains into India, they brought with them their male gods. And they could not deal. They just didn't like the idea of this powerful wild female god. And so they created new stories, and they created the story that Shiva, who came from the north with these men, got in a dance battle with Kali in the forest to see who would become ruler of all, who was actually the most powerful. And that's how they subjugated Kali and put her in her place, and were like, you lose the battle, okay, now Shiva's the most important one. And the same thing kind of happened here with Hecate. That wasn't a dance battle, unfortunately. That would have been cool, but we'll get to her story in a moment and how they did that to her. But let's see. So she's the goddess. Hecate is the goddess of witchcraft, of darkness, because she's the new moon, right? When it's the most dark. She's darkness, witchcraft, mystery, and crossroads. And there's another goddess, right? Remember that one. So the other goddess was Dhumavati. Remember the smoke goddess? Dhumavati was the goddess that was smoke from when Shiva's beloved Sati went into the funeral pyre. And the smoke that came out was Dhumavati. And Dhumavati also was shown in a horseless chariot at a crossroads. And so here again, we have this idea of sort of the fringe dwelling, scary woman who hangs out in the crossroads. And crossroads are traditionally also a place where tricksters like to hang out. Like in Greek mythology, Hermes was always considered a trickster god who loved to like mess with people, and he loved crossroads as well. And I was listening to one woman speak about this, and she said that the ability to see the gift and the opportunity in sort of the chance of a crossroads, that's sort of, it's almost like magic to be able to see that, to find like the opportunity in the middle of a problem. And that's something that tricksters are kind of good at. And you know, crossroads are really, they're meeting places, right? We definitely feel like, I think we're at a crossroads right now in our history, our cultural and political history. And so crossroads are places of transformation, if we so choose. And also crossroads, we mentioned in the Dhumavati episode, are often where they would kill murderers and people who got in trouble, you know, thieves and things, because they felt that their soul wouldn't know which way to go. It couldn't get back to the town if they killed them at a crossroads. And so she has a special place in her heart for lost people, like a lot of those other goddesses that we talked about. Her name, by the way, comes from the word Hecatas, and it means worker from afar. Sort of like, you know how like a real witch can be anywhere. She can be in her home and she can cast some spell or say some mantra and affect somebody in China. So that's her worker from afar thing, but also because she did stand in solitude at the edges, at the outskirts. They say she liked to live in caves away from people, and later she lived in the underworld. So she was away from all the other gods and goddesses. She liked to be in the earth, kind of surrounded by mystery. And what she does, like her power comes from being alone. Her power comes, like the things that she does, they need to take place in the dark, in the confinedness of her alonement. Actually, that just reminded me, do you know the David Whyte poem? I'm going to find it real quick. Of alone. It's so beautiful. And sorry, one second. David Whyte. Yes. Arrivals. Hang on. Okay, I don't want to leave you too long, but fine. I can't spell. Hey, kitty. Oh, here we go. Okay. It's called Everything is Waiting for You. Nope, that's not the one. All right, I'll find it before we go. I will definitely find it for you. But basically, it's saying that, don't be afraid of the dark and the confinement of your alonement, because that's really where your true power is and where change happens. And so that's what Hecate represents, like being willing to go into the darkness of your own deep, deep inner being, and be willing to be a lunatic, actually, to go a little crazy, and to go there, and to go into the darkness, and go into the depths, and see things differently, and try to come out with a new vision, a new way to see things transformed. So the thing about her power, what happened to her, is that the patriarchy doesn't like a woman who creates her own knowledge and power. That's threatening. Often, historically, we know that and so it's sort of the same as the goddess Circe, who I think we'll talk about next time. But Circe, just her little story in a nutshell, was that she had no power. And in her father's kingdom, her father was Helios. So Helios was the one I mentioned, who carries the sun across the sky. That was Circe's father. And her father always just didn't like her. She was like the unwanted child, basically. And I know, it's really sad. And the book by Madeline Miller is incredible. So it's really, really good. So he doesn't like her. He gets mad at her for something she does, and he banishes her, and she's got to go live on this little island for eternity. But once she gets to the island, I just finished it. It's amazing. Yeah. So once she gets to this island, she starts kind of playing with all of the herbs and the animals and things, and she develops this incredible power. I'm not going to spoil the book for you. This is just in the beginning. But basically, she goes from this powerless, sort of weak and ineffective woman to creating, she collects her own knowledge about the plants and the animals. And what does Amelia say? Like, it says, rotting goddess, pallid, decaying body, who has to wear a mask when she visits the gods in heaven. Oh my God, that's hilarious. That's Hecate or Circe, Amelia? That's Hecate, right? That's so interesting. She has to wear a mask. Oh my goodness. Yeah, definitely. And so Circe and Hecate, both of them, what they do is they become powerful by being witches, which is like they used plant medicine. And it's really right. And that's what they called a witch, was someone who knew about herbs. And it's just so silly. And how that was really powerful, and that was sought after, considered a really powerful thing to know about these medicinal herbs and plants. But eventually that became less revered than medicine, than like chemical modern medicine. And it has to do a lot with that, historically, knowing the plants and herbs was associated with women. And more modern medicine was more associated with men. Right. And so that's what happened to a lot of these goddesses. And that's why a lot of that knowledge, that knowledge of the land and the flowers and the plants and the animals, became less, they looked upon it less highly than they did modern medicine. Because, yeah, go ahead, Samantha. Unmute yourself.
I don't know if any of you have heard this outside of Canada, because I find Canadian news doesn't quite make the cut sometimes in America, but we have, right in Alberta here, we have a couple who lost their child to supposedly meningitis because they were trying to heal their child naturally through herbs. And in the news, they said they were feeding this child garlic and horseradish, which actually wasn't true. The media put that in there, but the true story came out in court, because my friends were actually at the courthouse with them, because all of us who were like natural healers were freaking out a little bit, because they went to jail for killing their kid. And what ended up happening is it was actually the paramedics. They lived in the rurals, and the paramedics gave this kid the wrong drug, and he had 4 heart attacks on the way to the hospital. But they blamed the parents for being natural healers, and they are like actually very prevalent in like his dad even created this amazing supplement. But now the crown is appealing it. Like he got off with not guilty. Finally, we were all like victorious. Now the crown's trying to appeal it. And it's just like, this is the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Like, it
Oh,
freaks me out.
that's so scary. And that's what I was listening to, this amazing woman, I forget her name, Dr. somebody, and I could find it and send it to you all. But she was talking about this. She said this really is, it represents not just women, but anyone who wants to collect their own knowledge and not succumb to groupthink. Like anybody who wants like to have their own power and their own agency over themselves. The patriarchy is like, no, 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 that's threatening to us, right? And we see it happening all over in different aspects of our life right now, you know, with what's happening in America and other places in the world. It's like people rising up and saying, no, we have power too. And the white male patriarchy is like, we can't handle this. And so that's what happened to these goddesses. That's what happened to your people that you know in Canada. I mean, it's really, really terrifying. But you know, so that's what happened. And then there's another story about Hecate too, and this one really sort of solidified her place in the underworld. And it's the story of Persephone. And it's now illegal to protest. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
And in England.
No, that's so terrible. And I'm surprised Canada, because we in America, we look up to you in Canada like the Holy Grail, like we love Canada and want to run away to there. Oh my goodness. Mini Trump in Alberta. Wow. And you in UK, you got your Trump as well. Yeah. Whoa. So all the more reason why we've got to gather together, keep having our women groups and keep fighting the patriarchy and all of it, you know, using these goddesses. It's so timely to talk about all these characters because that's what myths are for. You know, myths aren't to give you answers. That's not what they're there for. But they don't tell us how to do things. They don't tell us what to do. But they give us sort of the invisible background, which starts us imagining and questioning and going deeper. That's really the beauty of a myth. It starts to like inspire you from the depths and gets you thinking about things differently. And I think that these goddesses are really helpful. So the story of Persephone, some of you might be familiar with it. I'll tell you the short version is basically that Persephone was a young woman. Her mother was Demeter. Demeter is the goddess of the harvest. She would make the grain grow and, you know, nourish the people. And one day Persephone is out in the fields near Mount Etna and she's picking flowers. And Hades sees her. He's the god of the underworld and he falls in love with her. And he basically grabs her and pulls, look at those kittens, oh my God, pulls her down into the underworld with him. And now Demeter, her mother, is looking all over and she's completely, as you can imagine, torn up. Like, where's my daughter? She was all over the fields and everywhere looking for her. And finally, the strange old woman who lives in the cave nearby, Hecate. So Hecate, of course, she's like some old crone by this point. They've sort of relegated her to just living in this cave away from everyone. But Hecate says, I heard her scream. And so we should go to Helios, the sun god, because he sees all. And we should go ask him. I'm sure he saw something. And so they find out from Helios what happened, that Hades took her down to the underworld. And Hecate, here's where Hecate stands up and she's like, I'll go find her. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid of the dark, because she's not afraid to go there. She's like, I've been to the dark. It's not that scary. I can handle it. So not only does she go to the darkness, she goes down into the underworld. She's also, one of her symbols is torches. Actually, I should tell you, all her symbols are torches, gates and keys, and dogs. And the dog thing is a lot like the Hindu goddesses and Shiva. Shiva is associated with dogs as well, because dogs are, they're also, you know, for us in the West, dogs are pets that we keep in our home. But in the East, they're not. They're generally sort of like wild pack animals that roam wildly all around the streets and howl and things like that. And so that's why a lot of these sort of fringe dwelling dark goddesses and gods are associated with dogs. And the gate thing, keys. because she opens up new ways of seeing. She opens up new doorways. And that's that idea of the crossroads, that there's an opportunity in a doorway to like walk through into becoming something, into rising, into becoming more of yourself, better. And then and the torches, that's where I was. Okay, so the torches, the other thing, because torches light up the darkness. And so she takes her torches and she goes down into the underworld and she finds Persephone and basically saves the day. She actually finds Persephone and she rips her. She searches all over the underworld, finds her and grabs her. She's like, we're getting out of here. And she rips Persephone out of the underworld and brings her. But here's what happens though. She does that. She delivers Persephone back to Demeter. But Hecate was like, you know what? Not only was that underworld not that scary, I think I'm going to live there. I'm basically going to like get a timeshare in hell and that'll be my home. so that's how Hecate ends up living in the underworld. And to me, that's how they relegated her. Like they made the story. That's what happened. Just like they created the story of Kali and Shiva having the dance contest so that they could banish Kali out of the temple. They have this story of Persephone. Maybe that's not exactly why they have the story of Persephone. It has other messages in it as well. But definitely it was an opportunity to banish Hecate to the underworld. And so this goddess that started out as on par with Zeus, the most powerful of all the female goddesses in the whole Greek pantheon. She goes from being this powerful triple goddess of heaven, hell, and earth who can do anything she wants. She's gorgeous. There's 3 of her, the rise, and then eventually the fall down into the underworld because she got too powerful, because she knew plants and magic. And so she was kind of like pushed down into hell. And now for all eternity, she's relegated to this sort of second class citizen status of the gods. But the cool thing is that now she's making a comeback. And so I listened, I always try to find podcasts about these because I love to just listen while I'm doing other things. And I found so many, if you're interested in witchy stuff, there's so many cool, badass women doing witchy podcasts, right? And Hecate, they are all like, Hecate is our woman. So she's really made a comeback. And the cool thing too is that they were all really young. Like all these podcasts I listened to, they all sounded like they were in their 20s, 30s, like babies, and just like super cool and into magic and into these ancient, wild, dark goddesses. And so I think that that her time is coming again. And I love that idea of being able to light up the darkness. That maybe that's what a witch is, that a witch is someone who sees things differently than other people, who can really see in a way, see things anew, see the possibility in things that other people might not be able to see, the possibility in the darkness, and then light it up and bring others with her. Because Hecate she wanted to help people. She would help every human that she could. None of the other gods did that, by the way. They all just messed with the humans. They thought they were just toys to play with. But Hecate, she really was amazing. So I'll pause for a moment here and see if anybody has any thoughts on Hecate or Persephone or any of it. No? All right. Yeah, it's going to be, I had a feeling today was going to be a little bit of a shorter episode just because there's not much on, I couldn't find more stories on these goddesses. This was all that I could find. Which is pretty wild because they're so ancient and so powerful. But like I said, you get a book like this and I got so mad. And as soon as I was so excited to get this book, then I got it and I was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And I called up my girlfriend. I was like, you're not going to believe this. It's all about men. It is like 99% men in this damn book. So I think we really need to rewrite the stories. We really need to write our own books and keep doing this, keep talking about this, and keeping this stuff alive. And just one side note too about rewriting the stories was, where did I write it? I wrote something about it at the crossroads. I listened to this one woman. She's really, Bridge Burke is her name, and she writes a lot of papers. She's a mythology teacher. I'm not sure what college she teaches at, but she was talking about Hecate as, because she's at the crossroads, and the crossroads are like neither here nor there. Are you this? Are you that? Are you in? Are you out? Are you with us? Are you against us? And she was talking about Hecate as a goddess of trans people. And I thought that was really beautiful. That Hecate is really like, there's an openness about, you don't have to be one or the other. You could have a foot. She's the earth, and she's hell, and she's heaven. And you can be all those things at once. And you can be on this side of the road and one foot on that side of the road. And that also, I think, was why she was relegated eventually to the underworld, because just people in general had a problem with that idea of, I'm not here nor there. Isn't there a Sanskrit word for not this, not that? Yes, there is. And I can't remember what it is now, but just what's a great word. I know. Yeah. No, not padam, but it's something like that. Yeah. Oh, I wish I knew. Yeah. But I do want to find you. I remembered the name of the poem, and so I'm going to put that in. There we go. I want to read to you this beautiful poem. And to me, this is very much what Hecate is about. It's called Sweet Darkness. And it's by David White. I know some of you know him as well and love him like I do. So he says, when your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. It's time to go into the dark, where the night has eyes to recognize its own. It's time to go into the dark, where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Amazing, right? So that to me was netty. That's it. Thanks, Samantha. Yeah, netty, not this, not that. She's definitely netty. Yeah. Yeah, poetry is the gift of the gods, for sure. We need it now. Goddesses. I know, I've been catching myself so much lately, like feeling and realizing how deeply embedded the patriarchal system is in me. I had an interesting conversation yesterday with thank you, Amelia. Alex O'Dare. So I love these guys who, they have this podcast called Conspirituality, and they're very interesting, but it's like a dude club. It's three guys talking. And I shared something on Facebook about it, and somebody sort of challenged me, and they were like, well, it's just dudes, with opinions. I was like, I know, but nobody else is talking about this stuff. And then I realized my friend Alex had been talking about it for like 6 months. And I was like, but I didn't think, because I think of men as the experts. It's so deep, that thing of like, no, the woman's sort of peripheral, but the men are the ones. The men are scholarly. The men know what they're talking about. And I was like, oh, it's in me. Oh my God. But it's really, really deep. And so we really have to do the work. I mean, we've got a lot of work to do right now with, all of the showing up to undo supremacy, white supremacy and racism, but also that patriarchy stuff. It's all connected. And, you know, it's in there if we look. So we got to be like Hecate. We got to go into our dark night and look for it and recognize. Yeah, Carrie.
Just to say, I work with victims of domestic abuse, and I see daily like warrior women, so brave, like bringing up their kids in the most awful situations with these men. And I know that women can be perpetrators as well. But I see this all the time, and I see, and I've recently had an experience of a policeman deeming an attack on a woman as a medium risk, which was I won't go into the details, but it was horrific. And we were and everyone took it because it was a man. I think a police officer, a man. He deemed it was okay. No one stood up to challenge it, and I just went no. Like, so then I just fought it and fought it and fought it and brought it in front of all the police and the courts and everything today to say no, I don't agree. I do not agree. And I think you're right. I think absolutely we have to. Why do we automatically think because a man said it and maybe a man in uniform, that's okay? Like, God, we need to stand up more. Absolutely. And I'm really with you on the kind of white supremacy thing. But I really feel very strongly at the moment about the female male thing, because I'm like seeing it all the time. And the biggest warriors I see at the world at the moment are women, and women that aren't even recognized because they're in their houses and no one sees them.
Oh, thank you for sharing. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah. Anybody? Go ahead, Samantha.
Yeah, I just want to riff on what Carrie's saying is, I mean, first of all, thank you, Carrie, for being so vocal and amazing and not backing down and like, yeah, amazing. It's funny because I don't know about you, Carrie, but I find some people don't believe you when you say that. Like they're like, the justice system would never be like that. And
Yeah,
my friend was a victim of domestic violence, and we were in court. I was there with her, and there was and I believe she was African. I could just kind of tell by how she spoke. I think she was Nigerian. So there was this Nigerian couple that went up to the judge before my friend did. And she, she had her eyes downcast, that kind of thing. And I couldn't believe what the middle-aged white judge said, which was all he said. All I could hear that he said was, he goes, I'm going to give him his gun license back, because he goes, from the hours of 9 to 5, because he goes, I find it really hard to believe that he would leave work to kill you. And I was like, he attacked her at knife point too. And I was just like, is this, like, that's what really broke down my, oh my gosh, this system is broken, like 100%. And people won't believe me. Like when I tell people that, they're like, no, you probably heard that wrong. I'm like, oh no, I didn't. Mm-mm. Like, and she kept saying, but he'll kill me. And he's like, no, I'm gonna 9 to 5. We'll be fine. You can't have it after work.
The hysterical woman thing. Mm-hmm. And we're not believed. And when somebody wrote on a Facebook post that I shared the other day, it was Kim, who might see this afterwards. She usually gets the recording. You might remember she came for a while to this workshop, and she was like, oh yes, like there it is again, that hysterical woman thing. And anytime a woman speaks out, it's like you automatically, like, you're too much, you're being wild. No. It's like, you're the crazy one. It's gaslighting, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're the crazy one for speaking out. And so we just have to be brave, because, a lot of people are going to get scared and not speak out once they're told once that you're wrong, you're too much, you're too loud. They'll just shrink away. And so it's up to us, I think, to be like, loud and break down the systems, tear it apart, burn it down. Thank you all so much for sharing. Anybody else?
Hey, Kelly, I have one thing I was thinking of, and it's a little more benign than the last couple of stories we had, but thank you for sharing. You've inspired me to, I did some research into Latin American goddesses, being Latin American myself. And it's so interesting. It's so hard to find anything. And part of that, of course, is colonialism just like wiping out all like indigenous stories just across the board. But you know, you can still find some stuff about gods, but very little about goddesses. There's some that are interesting in and of themselves. But I had to stop myself and I was like, what is the Spanish word for goddess? And I couldn't believe that I had never had that thought before to find out, and that I had never heard it before. So I looked it up. For everyone, it's diosa. So like Dios, God, with an A at the end. And I'm like, I have never in my life heard this word before. And like, it's so telling that I grew up in a Spanish speaking household, never have heard anyone ever use that word before.
Wow, that's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I was looking at Santa Muerte. I was thinking that would be a really fun goddess to do. Yeah, and Bruja. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Anybody else? We're waking up, ladies.
So I work in a I work in a male-dominated industry. I install live events. I'm one of the only female project managers on the floor. And I started with this current company in 2014, and I was questioned and ignored for so much time. My lead project manager, like I would tell him to do it this way because I have been doing this for a while, and I'd like run and get lunch, and I'd come back and they'd be doing it completely different. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, why are you doing it that way? And he's like, oh, I thought it would work better. And I have had that so many times in life, and it takes so long, and I feel like I have to fight so hard to like get the respect. And like, yeah, she does have knowledge. Like one day another guy needed to borrow something from our stuff, and he asked the truck driver rep, because he was the old white guy in the booth who like didn't know a goddamn thing about anything. So it's very hard, and it's still there. I mean, I do see more women coming into my field, and like I have such high hopes for most of them. And I try to support them as much as possible, because we absolutely need more females in everything. Things would go so much smoother.
One of my friends said, it's time to pass the mic. Pass it to the women. Enough of the white man in the front of the room, just enough. Pass it. Yeah.
I ended up firing that guy who did it the wrong the way I did it.
That's great.
Like,
oh my God.
I'm not dealing with this for the rest of our time together, so you're gone.
For you. Amazing. I'm so proud to know you all, and I'm so grateful for this. So we'll meet again, and